Yesterday, I was looking forward to watching the BBC's Question Time programme, and it was truly exciting. Nigel Farage appeared on the screen discussing a variety of topical topics, including the resumption of Labour's activities under the leadership of Starmer. As always in this show, real arguments broke out, and in one of them, Farage and Alistair Campbell clashed. It was incredibly stressful. In today's video, we will dive into this episode, react to every word, and discuss the latest news from different parts of the country. Farage and Campbell had a real verbal battle on the programme, where the leader of the Reformist Party of Great Britain did not hesitate to call Campbell the greatest loser in history. Don't miss this exciting moment.
I was disappointed Keir didn't mention Brexit, because I think Brexit has done so much damage to this country. Well, I'm sorry, Neil.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Nigel doesn't want to accept.
You are the worst loser in history, Alistair. Get over it. It's 8 years ago.
Nigel,
move on.
No, you won.
It's done.
You're the worst winner.
It's done.
Because you've never taken responsibility for what you've won.
It's done. No, we're independent, we're free, and we're not part of that Eurozone that's collapsing around its ears.
No, I'll tell you what you are, Nigel.
We're out.
I'll tell you what you
we're
are.
free.
I'll tell you what you are. You're somebody, and we've seen it already tonight, you're somebody who will exploit any problem going for your own political ends. Brexit was a fundamentally damaging thing to this country. That is your one legacy, and you now don't even want to talk about it, because even you
I want to talk
even
about
you
it.
know that it has damaged this country, it's made us poorer, it's made us weaker, and it's hit our standing in the world.
By voting in a referendum for Britain's withdrawal from the European Union, the citizens of the kingdom demonstrated a desire to regain control of their country despite the threats posed by the international community. This statement was made by Nigel Farage. My God, who would have thought? The threats and warnings that came from the international community, that after all this, the British people will not be afraid to say, "That's it, we don't want to hear this. We want to regain control of our country, our democracy, and our lives," Farage said. Answering questions, he called unacceptable the option in which the UK, for the sake of trade with Europe, would pay dues and allow freedom of movement, as Norway and Switzerland do. If events develop according to the worst-case scenario, and we cannot reach an agreement, then the absence of any deal is much better for us than the unenviable situation we're in now. And this is also very bad for the EU, the politician added.
The slow realisation that Brexit was a terrible mistake continues.
We're regulating our own businesses even more than they were as EU members. Brexit has failed.
I'm sure that my memory is not deceiving me, but didn't he once say this?
If Brexit is a disaster, I will go and live abroad. I'll go and live somewhere else.
It's a shame, of course, that we're not in the European Union anymore, because then there'd be 27 countries to which he could move more or less freely.
You have been calling for the UK to leave the EU for a long time, and finally, the hour has come. The day of the referendum. How do you assess the likelihood that supporters of leaving the European Union will win it? He said the chances were high, very high. Public opinion polls have never given us such an advantage before. Now we are at the finish line, which passes through people's minds. It's like a strong electric current driving the whole United Kingdom, going beyond all political parties, all generations, all social strata. Politicians have lied so much about the European Union and the Euro that they are no longer believed. You often criticize migrants, but many of them have been living in Britain for a long time. What is wrong with the current wave of migrants from Africa and the Middle East? The migrants of the first generations wanted and could integrate into our society. Besides, there weren't many of them. Today, new immigrants are not looking for a place to be accepted. They are looking for a better social and economic model. A place where higher salaries, higher social benefits are paid, you can get better housing and better education. They do not try to integrate into society in order to contribute to the general well-being. They only think about how to take advantage of existing benefits. But they should create all this in their homeland and not take it away from the British, who have spent hundreds of years to achieve prosperity on their land.
Has the time not come, Prime Minister, to prescribe what is so obviously a terrorist organisation, and in doing so, not just do the right thing, but maybe mend some fences between this government and the incoming presidency of Donald Trump's given that the whole of his cabinet have been so rude about him over the last few years.
Well, I'm glad to see the honourable member making a rare appearance back here in Britain. He spent so much time in America recently. I was half expecting to see him on the immigration statistics when we see the next back. But he may have missed. I did congratulate the incoming president.
Farage also said that Labour had long forgotten about British workers in order to switch only to migrants, a much more important electoral resource for them. I am sick of the European Union because it penetrates everywhere. It is too intrusive. Corbyn criticised the EU because he believes that it does not participate enough in our lives. Corbyn does not have enough of the European Union. He wants more. A space without borders, where migrants can come and go as they please, live wherever they want or with whomever they want. That's what he needs. I reject the EU because the borders are blurring. And he criticises him for the fact that they are not completely destroyed.
I got called with the Speaker to ask a question in PMQs. Well, the Prime Minister was not going to answer my direct question in any way at all, and all those Labour MPs screaming and shouting at me, gosh, it felt like being back in the European Parliament. I really rather enjoyed it. But the serious point, of course, and he's right, that with a population that has exploded over the course of the last few years, the previous government did not build enough prison places. But the whole question of early release, I mean, what is the point of a sentence if people are let out after only serving 40% of it? One of the people released from one of the northern prisons yesterday had, wait for it, 109 previous convictions. So that person, I would say, is...
In other news, Keir Starmer has faced a fierce backlash from civil servants' unions after his harsh criticism of Whitehall culture in a speech delivered at Pinewood Studios. The Prime Minister, in an effort to regain his lost ground, caused real controversy by saying that too many people in Whitehall had become comfortable in the warm bath of controlled decline. His words provoked the anger of trade union leaders representing civil service workers, who felt insulted and betrayed. He paraphrased Kennedy's famous saying, emphasizing the change is chosen not because it is easy, but because it is difficult. The Labour leader bitterly noted that officials act too cautiously, do not express bold ideas and set only those goals that are easily achieved. The leader of the FDA union, Dave Penman, could not contain his outrage, accusing Starmer of betraying the trust of government employees. He also sharply criticised Starmer's rhetoric, adding, "We've been getting used to this Trumpian language for 5 months now."
Wow. Now just give me a second. Just give me a second. Do you like them? Very expensive. But guess what? I bought them myself. How about that?
And men noted bitterly that Starmer could have focused on the outstanding work that the civil service does with relentless effort, instead of just pointing out its shortcomings. Steve Thomas, Deputy General Secretary of the Prospect Union, stressed with sincere excitement that reforms may be necessary, but the unions of civil servants have been openly declaring their willingness to cooperate constructively with the government for many years. Thomas called for a decisive fight against the uncontrolled reduction in the number of civil servants, proposing to reform the wage system so that it can adequately compete with the private sector. In response, Starmer, in his policy document, resolutely promised drastic changes in culture, abandoning an outdated mentality that, in his opinion, hinders progress. The leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, reacted with obvious displeasure to Starmer's speech, calling it evidence of the deep shortcomings of the Labour Party. She described his speech as a desperate attempt to reset his premiership and doubtfully suggested that Labour was not ready to run the country when it won the general election in July. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.